For 45 years, Willow Creek had been the lifeline of our valley. It carried not just water, but history, memory, and survival. My father, everyone just called him Pops, used to walk its banks after every rainstorm, measuring the flow in his worn leather journal. He taught me that water isn't owned. It's shared, passed down from one generation to the next like a sacred promise. But that promise was broken. Developers move in, led by Maggie Thornwell, and with the help of a city councilman named Rick, they diverted the creek. Quietly at first, pipes and barriers hidden behind construction fencing. Soon the water that had nourished farms, gardens, and families for decades was funneled into new subdivisions and false promises. Miguel Santos's century-old farm dried up. Mrs. Chen's ancestral garden, once green and abundant, turned to dust without the creek's flow. Families that had endured droughts and storms for generations suddenly found themselves without the one thing they had always counted on. Pops was gone by then, and I was still serving overseas. But when I came home and saw the creek strangled into silence, I knew what had to be done. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning restoration. As a veteran Army Corps engineer, I had spent years learning how water moves, how to bend it without breaking it. And Pop's journals gave me decades of proof. Seasonal patterns, flood levels, and natural spillways long forgotten by city records. The plan wasn't complicated. It was precise. I would build a controlled spillway to restore Willow Creek to its natural path. No homes would flood. No families would be harmed. The water would return to its rightful course, flowing where it had flowed for centuries. Amanda, my attorney and one of the few people I trusted, warned me about the storm that would follow. Maggie had money influence, and lawyers stacked higher than sandbags before a flood. Rick had political connections, and wasn't afraid to bend every rule in the book. But I had something stronger, the truth, and a community ready to fight for it. When the spillway opened, it was like the land itself took a deep breath. Mrs. Chen's irrigation lines filled for the first time in 18 months. Miguel's stock pond rippled under the Texas sun as cattle gathered to drink. Farmers downstream reported restored access to their water. The creek wasn't raging. It wasn't flooding. It was flowing exactly where it was meant to. The local diner owner showed up with coffee and fresh collages, grinning as he said, "My daddy farmed here. This is how it should be." Even some of Maggie's supporters began slipping away, realizing the so-called disaster she warned it wasn't disaster at all. It was restoration. But for Maggie and Rick, water flowing freely was their worst nightmare. The pressure wasn't just on the land. It was on them. The construction company received a cease and desist order. Federal investigators uncovered fraud. Maggie's insurance claims began unraveling, threatening to void her own coverage. And Rick? His cozy network of zoning deals and backroom contracts was collapsing faster than a levee made of cardboard. Still, they fought back. Maggie called Rick in a panic, demanding he block the spillway. Rick, never one to learn, sent 3 concrete trucks to dump their loads across the creek bed. The stunt backfired instantly. Federal agents arrested the drivers on the spot. Interfering with an environmental investigation wasn't just reckless, it was a felony. The tide had turned, but the real battle was still ahead. Judge Walsh's courtroom was overflowing. Farmers, HOA residents, reporters, federal agents, everyone wanted to see what would happen when the truth finally faced power. Maggie arrived polished and prepared, flanked by high-priced attorneys and expert witnesses. She painted me as a disturbed veteran with revenge fantasies, claiming I had turned water into a weapon. Her lawyers paraded photographs, psychiatrists, and accusations as if drama alone could drown the facts. But Amanda was ready. She presented the 1978 covenant requiring seasonal flooding. EPA officials testified that the creek's flow matched 60 years of historical patterns. Fire Chief Martinez confirmed my spillway was executed without a single safety violation. Then came the hammer blow. Under oath, Rick admitted to fast-tracking zoning changes while I was overseas and revealed his financial ties to the construction company. Amanda played a recorded phone call where he talked about destroying property values. Rick lost control, shouting it was all a federal setup as he stormed toward the exit. His own words had sealed his fate. But it wasn't just documents and laws that turned the tide. It was people. Miguel Santos spoke of 3 generations of dreams dried up by the creek's diversion, his voice breaking as he remembered his grandfather's farm. Mrs. Shin showed photographs, her garden alive before, withered after, her quiet dignity louder than any argument. Farmers, firefighters, families, all spoke of what the water meant to them. Maggie tried one last act, accusing me of psychological warfare and calling the spillway environmental terrorism. But when I took the stand, I kept it simple. I showed Pop's journals, explained my calculations, and said clearly, I didn't flood anybody. I restored a creek stolen from this community for 45 years. Amanda closed with proof of Maggie's HOA paying millions in fines for an identical scheme. The prosecutor announced a criminal investigation into interstate fraud. Judge Walsh denied all of Maggie's requests and ruled the spillway legal, ordering the HOA to cease interference. Justice had found its current. The fallout was swift. Rick pled guilty to federal conspiracy and went to prison. Maggie faced millions in civil penalties and filed for bankruptcy. The construction company paid hefty fines and was banned from federal contracts. The HOA dissolved, replaced by a community association focused on stewardship, not greed. The creek flowed free again, and the land responded. Farmers harvested their best crops. In a decade, wildlife returned. Mrs. Chen's garden bloomed into a model of sustainable agriculture. The local diner became the headquarters for what we now call the Willow Creek Restoration Association. And the community wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. 6 months later, the transformation was undeniable. Ecotourism arrived with kayakers and birdwatchers. The Army Corps of Engineers added my spillway to their training manuals as a case study. Federal agencies cited Willow Creek in new enforcement guidelines. I used the insurance settlement to buy back Miguel's farm and hand it to him debt-free. Together, we started a scholarship in Pop's name to train the next generation of water protectors. Miguel's daughter Maria became the first recipient, now studying environmental engineering at UT Austin. Each Sunday, I still visit Pop's grave. I bring a mason jar filled with creek water, just like he used to after a storm. The creek's singing again, Pops. I tell him, just like you said it would. And here's the twist. What began as one veterans fight spread across Texas. Communities statewide use our model to fight back against illegal diversions. Federal prosecutors expanded investigations across 3 states. Willow Creek had become more than a creek. It was a movement. Because sometimes, to save the land you love, you have to fight. But you don't fight alone. You fight with neighbors, with truth, and with the belief that clean water belongs to everyone, not just the ones with the deepest pockets and the dirtiest hands. Water finds a way. Justice finds a way. And when communities stand together, nothing can stop the flow. Willow Creek runs free, and it always will.